Jalen, why did Kawhi have to do him like this?
Kawhi squares up, drives to the basket, and it reminds me of Redman. Ah, look out. It's the Funkadelic Funk for Chump that don't be knowing my name. It ain't good to be Derek Favors on that one. Let's start the show.
He's Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What exactly is it that we do?
We give the people what they want.
Jalen, who is joining us on this program in mere minutes?
Grizzled, seasoned veteran, 3-and-D guy, star of the Phoenix Suns, Jay Crowder is joining the program. Make sure you stick around and check that out.
But we start the show with a game that you were at in person in Atlanta with the Hawks trying to even the series against the 76ers. 76ers started the game hot. In the second half, it was Atlanta behind Young and Bogdanovich that got the win. Jalen, what did you see from inside the building?
Peace up, A-Town down. Not only was I at the game, I was at the game with my kids. Ladarius was in the house. Mariah was in the house, and it was Gracie's birthday. And I was enjoying adult beverages, and I was watching Trae Young and Bogdanovich put on the show. And the difference in the two games that they've lost in this series versus the two games that they've won is the two games that they've won, both of those guys have been putting in work. And their backcourt did that in this game. And also, the pick and rolls that they were running against Joel Embiid, I started to see fatigue in the big fella. They do a single screen, they do a stagger screen, and before you know it, the big fella was out there stuck guarding Trae Young a couple of times. And on the other end, they were asking him what you do for a guy that finished second in the MVP race, that averaged 30 this year, and is the most physically dominating force we have in the game. You also want him on the other end to give you post-ups, to get to the line, to give you blocks, to give you rebounds. And I noticed that a guy playing with a torn meniscus, Jacoby, doesn't necessarily get optimal conditioning. And in the second half, it showed. He didn't make a field goal. And also, when they were going to the timeouts, he was laying on the floor like Larry Bird in the late 80s with a bad back. The big fella was fatigued. He has to do a lot for his squad. So as long as his health and his ability to reinvent his conditioning during this series, because that's what you have to do. Like certain times, like as a guard before the game, you dribble real hard, take it through your legs, you go full speed dribble, like you have to do all of that stuff. And as a big, he has to also. And I noticed when they were out there warming up before the game, he was the final person to come out there because he's trying to save everything he can for the game. So I believe Joel's conditioning holds up along with his health. Therefore, I believe they advance. But now they just made this a really tough series, Jacoby, because the Hawks are confident.
The Hawks asked some questions of the 76ers in the second half, specifically Trae Young, who we've all seen him shoot from deep and we've seen him get that floater off. But it was really tonight was his assist, his playmaking, which is excellent passes like that one to Capella and a couple to Collins. There's one to Collins in the corner that was just fantastic where he went up and went under two defenders, hit Collins in the corner with a little wraparound. Trae Young was true. That one right there. Trae Young was truly playmaking last night, and it was great to see. And I'm not so sure that this is the 76ers series. I'm not going to call it for the Hawks either, but this does look wide open when you see Joel Embiid go over 12 in the second half, look like he needs treatment, look like he's getting picked on in the pick and roll. They can make this very difficult for the 76ers if they attack Embiid.
And being in the building, certain plays happened that rejuvenated the Hawks team and the crowd. And you just showed a couple of them. Those John Collins dunks were game changers because the Hawks were trailing for most of the game. And then they finally got themselves back in the game. And Collins' dunks and Trae Young's passing were very crucial. 18 assists. He's the only guy before 23 other than Isaiah and Chris Paul to have that many points and that many assists in a playoff game before turning 23 years of age. And he could have had a few more assists because he was out there playing around. You see the one on the fast break, he tried to throw it off the backboard? Like, he didn't realize that Joel wasn't going to run down there and contest that. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't going to contest that. But that just lets you know how locked in Trae Young was as a playmaker. And I also have to say one last thing for the casuals. Trae Young and Steph Curry both are 4-level scorers, okay? Shout to Yoda Rashard Phillips, my nephew, who I got that from. With that being said, him, Dame, and Steph, those guys are in a different category. He's also required to play make. Like, that's what makes him and Steph different. The 18 assists, Jacoby, he's their primary ball handler. He's their primary initiator of offense. For the Golden State Warriors, that player is Draymond Green. So I just wanted to show people how different both of those guys are getting their numbers. Steph is the best in the league moving off the ball, cutting off the ball, pass and relocate. He's the best at doing that. How he gets his 30 is way different in most cases, other than shooting the long ball, than how Trae Young gets his numbers.
Jalen, that was the first game. In the second game, not as competitive, not as interesting, because it was another Clipper game where Kawhi Leonard and Paul George showed up. Of course, I'm talking about Game 4 against the Jazz. The Clippers again fell down 0-2 in the series, and now they find themselves again tied up. What was it about this Clippers performance that got them to even the series?
The Jazz are going to need to get Mike Conley back. But the main thing is when your two-star players in back-to-back playoff games each score 30. That hasn't happened many times in the history of the NBA playoffs. And playing on their home floor, it always is great for me to watch when Kawhi decides that he's about to take over. And everybody that's watching this year's playoffs, you know my favorite thing about it, Jacoby? It looks different. Like, so many times I'm watching NBA basketball and I'm seeing 5 guys standing around the three-point line and everybody just jacking up the three as soon as they get it and not working the game. I'm seeing Chris Paul work the game. I'm seeing Kawhi Leonard work the game. I'm seeing PJ Tucker and Jay Crowder be tough and physical defenders that are also knocking down threes. That looks different. It looks different, and it's refreshing. And the other thing for the Clippers, Morris three-point shooting. He's always going to have one of those games in the series where he makes like 5 threes in a game. Unfortunately for the Jazz, that was in this game. And Rudy Gobert, as you see, and/or Favors is the defender on those. That's why you want to get him out there to spread the floor and take advantage of those guys. And he did a terrific job of being productive.
Donovan Mitchell played well in this one. The Jazz threatened a little bit in the fourth quarter, but never really got it down to its sort of striking distance at the end. Jalen, Donovan Mitchell doesn't seem to be 100%. Do you think they can get him back healthy for a pivotal Game 5?
I believe if he needed to go back in the game, they could have put him back in the game. So I think health-wise, he'll be just fine. The thing I'm worried about is his usage. See, you look at the stat sheet and Utah made 17 threes. But how they're getting them in this series isn't necessarily how they got them during the regular season. And it's because they need Spider Mitchell to be outstanding because either they're behind and or they don't have Conley and or the matchups just are more favorable to your best player on the perimeter because he's a guy that you can get a ball to and go get a shot for him, go get a shot for everybody else. And they're going to need my guy Jordan Clarkson also to have a big game. I anticipate the next game that these two teams play, Jordan is going to have a big game because his team is going to need it. That's why he's the 6th man of the year.
Absolutely. Jalen, very quickly, I want to talk to you about a story The Athletic reported yesterday about Luka Doncic and sort of the turmoil going on in the locker room in the front office with the Dallas Mavericks. Very quickly, do you think that the Mavs should be worried about Luka staying long-term in Dallas?
No, because unlike Aaron Rodgers, he went to the podium after they lost the playoff series and was asked a question after his, 46-14, do you want to stay in Dallas? And he says, I'm going to resign. So there's no reason for Dallas to worry. Now, however, the employee that allegedly doesn't get along with Luka, we'll know the answer to this really quick. Because if he stays with the team